for joining us in the studio. You've been watching these pictures very carefully. We have to remember, as well as a ground and air offensive, there is a propaganda offensive in this conflict as well. How believable, how trustworthy are these pictures that civilians, let's talk about them for a moment, are getting out safely?
Well, there was a joint Syrian-Russian initiative last Thursday to get people out of the city. The situation in the city is very difficult. Food is running thin. So the initiative is based on people leaving. The Syrian opposition is quite skeptical about this, saying if it's going to be a humanitarian effort, then you should be thinking about delivering food, not getting people out. Getting people out could only mean one thing, which is that the army is about to go in. So it's quite sensitive at the moment.
Is that why John Kerry, the US Secretary of State, is sceptical about Russia's promise of a humanitarian corridor then? He thinks it may be deception.
Well, that's what he said. It could be a ruse. However, there have been precedents in the past in other parts of Syria, in Homs and in a place called Al-Tal near Damascus, where an amnesty, that's what the Syrian government is calling it, an amnesty for people, for the rebels to lay their arms and come out safely. It happened and it worked before, so that we could be seeing a similar case here. I think that the Syrian government at the moment feels that they are in a position to offer such initiative or amnesty. They're offering 3 corridors for civilians and 1 for the rebels. So some rebels have already allegedly have taken up the offer and laid down their arms, and they are prepared to leave.
And what's likely to happen to those rebels, do we know? The ones that we're seeing holding their hands up, allegedly surrendering? What tends to happen to rebels that do surrender?
Well, it depends on who these rebels are. If they're hardcore people like IS, they probably would not surrender. But there are other rebels who are probably more amenable to making a deal. So, and the Syrian government has in the past cut a deal with some of them, because some of these rebels, so-called rebels, are local, local people who are only interested in protecting their areas. So probably they'll be open to some kind of deal with the government.
In some ways, it would be better if something like the UN could be there overseeing this, of course, but the suspicion, as you say, seems to be very much that they want to get people out, get people to surrender before an all-out offensive against Aleppo. Can you remind us, though, why Aleppo is so key, why it's so heavily fought for?
Well, it's the largest city in Syria, actually, although it's not the capital, but it used to be the largest city in Syria. It controls the north of Syria. So whoever controls Aleppo is going to control the whole north of Syria. Recently, the government's been making advances aided with by Russian airstrikes. So the rebels in the city have been besieged, and probably most of them would like to leave, because the other tactic would be to starve them to death, which we have seen in other places. So I think there's been a precedent already. So it is likely that this thing will work out.
And there have been warnings, hasn't there, by the UN that the people of Aleppo are close to starvation.
Yes, I mean, there have been warnings by the United Nations that food and medical equipment would run out by the middle of August. So there is a dire situation there.
Yes, many thanks. I know it's difficult to get across it all from London and to be able to try and verify those pictures, but thank you for talking us through it.